who work in the industry know it, but that creative translation is notorious for being low paying, even though it's highly skilled and involves a lot of research. So do you subsidize your creative translation with other work? And if yes, how do you balance the two or more?
Wants to go first?
I am all creative translation, and that's a full-time endeavor for me. So I can't really speak to balancing that.
For me, I guess sometimes I work with the well-paying agencies on stuff like marketing translation because I'm weirdly good at that. And those tend to just kind of flow in whenever. I'm learning how to do business and pharmaceutical translation, but it's long. So I try to balance things as best I can, which is not always to say very well. Because again, work-life balance doesn't exist for any of us right now, I think. And if you have it, I am jealous and you are a unicorn and teach me your ways. But yeah, I basically just try to balance it as best I can. Working with Futeki and Manga Planet has taught me the other side of creative translation and how much goes into that. It's taught me a lot about translation itself, and also just, you know, how to get better, how to see what other people are doing. And yeah, it's been very fun that way.
When I first started, I was doing some other work. Like I did social media at the Japan Times for a year. After that, after that, I was doing, I did some merchandising. So at Kodansha, I was facilitating licensing between an Italian rights holder, Japanese companies, and stuff like that. I actually did merchandise for the Ghost in the Shell movie.
Wait, which one?
A live action.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But we barely released anything because the Paramount just didn't. I probably shouldn't talk too much about it, but
well, the reception wasn't too great either, so I'm pretty sure.
That's true. But yeah, I think eventually I was just like, wow, I have a lot of translation to do, so I think I'm ready to just focus on that. So I'm mainly just translating now as well.
Does that answer your question, Jen? Do you have another one, or does all sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So let's go on next to Alexandra, and I don't want to slaughter your last name, but
oh yeah. No. So actually, I do some work also for Yen Press, so I was really interested to hear what you were saying earlier, Stephen. And I am wondering, you know, what you all do when you have been working with someone for a while, and you know, they keep asking you to do work, and like, how do you sort of renegotiate or approach renegotiating the rate that you get for work? Because, you know, normally it's for like one volume or whatever.
You want to go first, sir?
Sure. I guess, yeah, I will admit that I have never negotiated for a higher amount. I think there was maybe one case where I pointed out when I turned something in that, sorry, it was a little late because this volume of manga was like 350 pages, and she basically gave me the double rate, and I was like, oh, well, thank you. But yeah, I guess and maybe I'm just lucky. I know that there are you know, there are starter rates, and I definitely have gotten raises over time after, you know, I've worked with companies. Some companies will do that. Some companies are still basically offering me the same thing, but I guess I would say that at my workload, I get enough raw income from that I don't necessarily negotiate. So if there is something that feels like it's too much work, I will usually counter by just asking, okay, can I do this like 2 or 4 weeks later or something like that, see if I can push things back. But I haven't really, I don't know, it's been a long time since I've worked, you know, for like Tokyo Pop style rates, which was like, when I started was like probably $300 or $400 a book, which was really very bad.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
In my case, I did a bit of hybrid work for an agency earlier this year that was like partially marketing, but mostly a game. It was for a Switch game release. And negotiations broke down super early because the client didn't tell my project manager everything. And all of a sudden, my deadline changed from like, 5 days from now to 1 day from now. And I finally, after consulting with some good friends, including Kristi, thank you. I hate saying this because it's maybe not the nicest thing, but I've been taught the value of the asshole tax. I know that's a bad word, but I basically charged for a rush fee because it was a lot of work. It was, I believe, somewhere over 50,000 moji. And I said, look, you can either pay me and I'll finish it, or you cannot pay me and you can get somebody else. And the deadline is tomorrow, and they caved. A lot of it does have to be with the negotiation, but I found with most publishers, like I know with 7 Seas, who I've mainly worked with, and a little bit with Denpa, that you kind of don't renegotiate, or maybe I haven't done enough work for either to really say either way, but mostly renegotiation I've had is with smaller companies and agencies. So, yeah.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would say rather than, I guess I did ask for a raise from Yen, and I think I just asked for a raise. I don't, and managed to get one. For my light novels, the manga stayed the same.
Yes.
The other thing is when you start working for a new place, raise your rate.
Yes.
But then the other problem is, real talk, right? So I was doing manga editing for a while, and so we're auditioning to see a new translator. So we're like looking at samples, and I said, okay, here's the best one. And they're like, oh, that's the most expensive person. And I'm like, well, there's one. And they're like, so I think that's a problem, like people want it to be cheap, and it's like, but
you get what you pay for. And yeah. I've had to negotiate that with several agencies. One of the first agencies I worked with was a contractor for Kodansha US, and I got paid $350 a volume. And it was, and to put that into perspective, for the same volume at Yen, I would have gotten 1,000, for Yen 1,000, for a visit 1,000. For Yen Press, I think it's roughly the same as well. And here's the irony: even Tokyo Pop in this day and age, which they're still alive and well, they were paying more than this agency was. I had to quit, and I did. And I leaned a lot on Jen during that process, and I'm grateful to her for her support during that time, but it was a mess. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So the next question we have here is from Kimberly.
Okay, so my question is there a way to familiarize yourself with sound effects translation for manga beyond the typical Japanese to English dictionary site that everybody uses?
The one that hasn't been updated since 2011?
Yeah.
That one, yeah.
Read lots of manga.
Yeah. I think this is one of the areas that is like the most, I think, individual about translating, is how you do sound effects. Some people are going to stick closer to, because a lot of times it's obviously the sound effect is a stand-in for some kind of action, or, it's telling you something about what type of motion is happening. And so you just kind of put like some variation on the verb itself in there and things like that. And some people are way more, I guess, try to never use an existing word, like always come up with something. And that can be cool too, although it can also, you might lose the reader. They might not understand what that is supposed to mean. So I don't know. I guess it's just sort of like a comfort zone thing. I usually you know, it depends on on how much effort I'm feeling ready to put into coming up with a replacement. But I don't know. Yeah, I think just to learn more of them, it's just reading more manga, you know, getting more familiar with them.
I would say that I've actually just learned more about sound effects itself because they do appear in this book I'm working on. So there's 3 types of Japanese sound effects I just learned. So there's phenomimes, mimesis, and I probably didn't say that right, and onomatopoeias. And they all describe different motions and they're all used in certain ways. And I would say that aside from read more manga, if you're at the reading level where you can, you know, go for, you know, an academic level book or even a dictionary. I know there are a lot of like onomatopoeia dictionaries in Japanese floating around out there. Study. That's what you got to do. You have to study. And if you don't know, ask. It's the easiest way. So I'm also trying to work on the sound effect thing. It's been on my back burner for a while, but me and Kristi, I think you were helping. Jan Cash was helping. We also want to kind of build a better SFX dictionary because the jaded dictionary hasn't been updated since 2011. So a lot has happened in those 9 years. So at one point,
I'm actually keeping my own, like it's got over 2,000 something entries, just my own Excel sheet of like everything I've seen in other months.
Send it to me, please. I need it.
I'm still working on it, and it's like kind of my love project, like my passion project right now. And I want to like make it more organized, but like just from manga that I've not only translated, but that I've seen other translations. But let me just say one thing, even though I'm, you know, just one thing is that there are many ways to do sound effects translations wrong, which is to just look at the panel and think, oh, that kind of fits, or like, oh, I guess that's the situation. Like, you know, there's usually a logic to what's happening. Like if you see, you know, gu, and it's like, you know, gu with a little tsu, and you see like someone holding something, they're probably, you know, grab or clutch or whatever. It's not, there's, I don't know. And you'll see a lot of sound effects used over and over again, and all, you know, again, through all different manga, you'll start to realize that there may be many, but it's like you'll see the same ones getting hit over and over and over. I'm just saying, just please, my one personal pet peeve is people who I can't get, just don't look at the panel and be like, oh yeah, it's probably this. No, please, like, do your homework. There are resources and things like that.
So, I would also say too, if you look at other stuff that's been translated, you can learn a lot on the English side too. And I actually have learned a lot for some pretty difficult sound effects. Like, yeah, I mean, there's the whole meme about Zawa and you know, Akagi and everything, but I actually have learned a ton about, you know, how to employ certain things in English from other people's work.
All right, so does that, Emily, I don't know if you had anything else to add to that. Are we good? Okay. Oh, there you go. Said yep in the chat. All right, so the next question we have is from Heather. Ask it, you know, with your voice, or also be on camera.
Oh yeah, sure.
Hello.
Everyone. I'm new. Thanks for having me. I was excited. But just especially for the people who are in Japan right now, kind of how, you know, right now and before, did you kind of deal with the visa situation and having a job that kind of kept you stable here, but also allowed you to have the time to do freelance work? And did that end up being kind of translation related jobs, or did you do a more like typical like barista type day job? Though with the visa, I know that can be difficult because usually it doesn't fit within like the specialist of humanities visa as someone that's trying to find a job.
I guess that's me because I'm in Tokyo. Visa, I mean, my visa goes through my pseudo day job at Kodansha, which I really lucked into via sweat when I finished. The job opened up right as I was finishing my revenge year of study abroad at Waseda, so it was really convenient to just kind of fit in there. The the other, I mean, what day job? I think anything that doesn't wear you out too much. If you're exhausted by the end of the day, then you probably won't feel like translating. But if you have a little bit of bandwidth left, then anything.
Anyone else have comments on this, Molly or Steven?
I mean, for a number of reasons, for right now, I have to stay in the US, but I've heard everything, you know, like Emily is saying, that, you know, just as long as you find a job, you're good in terms of getting a visa, but then how to actually make that into like translation related work, I've heard from various people it can be very difficult. So it's my only take on that.
Steven, anything to add?
No, I have no experience in this field, so I can't add anything.
Okay, no problem. All right, does that answer your question, Heather?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess a follow-up would be, if you're outside the US, where do you get like all the like raw manga materials to practice translation or read in Japanese? So,
You mean if you're in the US?
yeah, like if you're outside Japan, kind of how do you find, especially, I know it's easier for novels, you can go to like Kinokuniya or whatever, but kind of because manga is so much cheaper in Japan, like is there a site to get it shipped to the US or?
I mean, Amazon Japan ships just about everything. As far as, I mean, I guess as far as like my actual work relationship goes, they will often send you digital files to work from.
Yeah.
And sometimes I also, like, if it's something kind of on a rush or I can't necessarily get it from Amazon quickly, there are other sites like Bookwalker that do digital manga sales, and you can just, you know, buy it there. And especially if it's a work project, they'll usually allow you to expense it on your invoice and things like that. Yeah, it's certainly much easier than it was at the start. I basically had, you know, I had to wait for them to send me physical books when I was working on stuff. So yeah, that's what I use Amazon pretty much.
Yeah, in my case, I actually, for pleasure, I was trying to get some books that are out of print. Manga Republic, I'm still waiting for my shipment because of, you know, how the USPS has kind of like degraded, but they do a lot of pretty solid sales. Amazon Japan, even though I know we don't want to use Amazon. For me, when I've had to expense things, the issue with Bookwalker that I ran into personally when I was working on Wonderland was that I was given, you know, they're like, hey, you need to translate this, but the files were really bad, so I needed to expense it. I went to Bookwalker, and due to what was probably a licensing thing, it was blocked in my region. So I panicked, and I asked a friend, I was like, what other ebook sites can I get where I'll actually be able to work on it? And ebook Japan does not region lock its material, and they are legit. They do also have their own reader, which I have found is actually a lot easier to use than Bookwalkers. It's a lot uglier looking, but it's functional.
I use Honto, the HONT.
Oh yes, I've heard of that one.
For all of the like manga or light novels that I needed immediately, I found all of them on there, and they're always like really low and reasonably priced, honestly. So I would
I think Jocelyn also uses them a lot, she was saying.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So what was the name of that again? Hanpo?
Oh, it's like Honto, so it's like
Honto.
Yeah, like HONDO. No,
yeah.
not D. It's T. Like
Is it?
There you go. Yes.
Okay.
It's okay. I have it right here. No, it's okay. But okay.
I was gonna say thank you all. Sorry, I squeezed in 2 questions.
Okay, I have the next questions are from Winifred.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, do you think it's okay to ignore the fan forums, the Reddits, all that stuff, which is what I usually do because I don't have the time or the stomach to like see what everybody's saying about all my translations? Yeah, can you just tune that out?
I
don't know about you. I don't know about Steven though.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part, yes, you can ignore that because obviously a lot of it. I mean, I think people tend to express opinions on things when they have a strong opinion about it, and so that is often negative. And so it could do more harm than good to read it. I do kind of drift through a lot of the discussions about One Piece. Not so much because I'm like curious about the reaction, but there are times when like there's some little detail, you never know what you might miss, especially in a really complicated series, where someone might say, oh, well, you know, this sounded like it was similar to this thing, or maybe people just don't understand a certain line. And when you're, at least in Shonen Jump, we have the luxury of putting out a digital version when it comes out, and then later we compile them for graphic novels. And so there's a secondary process to catch and correct things and make changes if we want to. And so sometimes that can be helpful, but it's certainly not the majority of the time. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot more worse you could do trying to follow too many opinions than good. But
Many
yeah, I don't know.
folks, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
In my case, I worked on that show in the winter, and the first thing that my friend who got me the job, her name is Rika, and Kristi knows Rika. She is a marvelous human being, and she's been working on a certain franchise now for a really long time. And I said, well, what do I do if I mess this up? And she's like, the first rule is that you don't look online to see what people are saying. You don't look, and you don't care. If it's like, that's a friend, it's different. But it's like, I found that with the way that fan culture has gotten extremely aggressive, a lot of people don't necessarily have the language knowledge when they sound off. So, you know, just like the Haikyuu thing, which was about a secondary translation thing, I would say that's the best example we have within the last month, where people didn't really have the language knowledge, but sure had an opinion about it. So I'd say, yeah, but that was some of the most valuable advice I've ever had, which is, it's like, you know, when you read like a newspaper article online, the cardinal rule is you don't look at the comment section. Same thing. So she didn't need to tell me, and she told me, and I'm forever grateful for that. So.
Right. Okay.
I'd say it can be useful sometimes to listen to fan nonsense. Like you have to wade through a lot of horrible things,
yeah.
but every now and then there's a criticism that is actually valid, and you're like, oh wow, I didn't get that, or oh wow, that's something to think about, or you can find something that's like, oh, I guess my editor changed that and made it wrong. Like,
oh God, yeah.
So I don't know. I try to kind of keep abreast of at least like Amazon reviews and stuff, just in case there's something I'm missing somewhere, you know. And then when the fans have their opinions, that part I can usually just tune out.
Yeah.
Or get attacked and and
mute and block your friends. Like honestly, like, and especially if you're like a translator on social media, if you're on Twitter, like you need to curate your experience, especially like if you are like Steven or like, you know, Caleb Cook, who works on My Hero Academia. Like I think he and I have talked about how to curate Twitter so we don't constantly get inundated by the actually folks that may not have valid criticism. So at least on my end, it's been helpful.
Right. Okay. Do I have time to ask my other question, or?
Oh yeah, we have 2 minutes left, so we could go out with a bang. Yeah, sure.
Sure. My other question was, how much of a series do you read before accepting it to translate? And do you reject a lot of projects? I've just run into a few situations where I don't have the time to read the whole series or that much of it before saying yes or no, and you can come across unpleasant surprises. I don't like some of the gender representations or tropes that I mentioned in the comments, such as lolicon. I don't find it funny. I think it's very inappropriate. But when you're already committed and it's like, oh, shoot, I should have maybe thought about that ahead of time, and end up feeling kind of like icky about something that you're translating, and just wondering how you deal with that kind of situation.
I guess I would say that I usually just skim through like a quick preview. If it's something I haven't heard of before, I'll just look through, just to get an idea of what the writing is like. But other than that, I do very little, advanced preparation, which is, if nothing else, it's just a matter of time, because I don't have time to do all of that ahead of time.
In my case, I actually ran into a trigger issue in the 4th volume of Fairy Tale Battle Royale, and I let my editor know. But if I'm doing adult material, I definitely read ahead. If it's just regular like shonen or seinen or whatever, I usually do what Steven does and skim through.
I would say, yeah, when I was trying to decide if I was going to take on Tanya the Evil, first thing I did was just like find out what the series is about and get a general idea of the story and stuff, and it sounded interesting. So then I want to look at the text, and my criteria at that point is, can I translate it? And if you know anything about Tanya the Evil, you know that that's a very important question. And I heard later that there were translators who were offered it and turned it down because they couldn't read it or couldn't translate it. And I was nearly tempted to go the same route, but it's barely possible. Tanya is really hard. So I think whether it's material you're going to be interested in, whether it's going to be something you can do at a decent pace, and then yeah, the issues, I mean, it's always going to be personal depending on how much you can stomach. I think like when I was working on Overlord, like book 5 has a torture rape scene, which was kind of disturbing, but also like after doing so much of this stuff, you're almost kind of immune to it in some ways, at least like to some extent, for me anyways. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this again. Like, and I mean, doing JK Haru, there was a lot of, like disturbing kind of like sexual stuff. So I think, yeah, everyone has their own threshold for that. And it's kind of just important to keep tabs on your own mindset while you're working, I'd say.
Yeah, I would doubly say this. If you have triggers, know your triggers. And if you find triggering material in what you're translating, let your editor know. There might be things they can do, there may not be, but at least you can be on the same page. It's absolutely essential, I'd say.
Awesome. So it looks like we're at the end of all the questions. Well, not all of them. Unfortunately, didn't get to every single one, but we're into the Q&A session and the interviews and everything. Thank you so much to everyone who attended, and of course to our amazing translators we just interviewed. I hope you all had as much fun and learned as much as I did, because extremely insightful. And thank you again. So